Derek Delboy Chisora.
Yes.
At 40 years old, on Saturday night, he rolled back the years in his final outing at the O2, his 10th outing at the O2. My dear friend Wally Downs said, instead of Hotel California, as he walks out to, we should say Hotel Del Chisora, because he's made that place his own. And on Saturday night, 10 of some of the maddest rounds I've ever seen. Him and Joe Joyce just colliding with each other constantly. Joyce down in the 9th, and Derek Chisora takes a unanimous decision in the showdown on the Thames. I mean, I'm not over egging it. It was one of the most mental fights I've ever seen. It was absolutely like nothing I've ever experienced before.
Who backed the Delboy win?
You did.
The
gaffer. The gaffer.
Yeah.
Absolutely nailed it. And do you know what? That 9th round, when he drops him, it's a counter shot. Oh, we back? Yeah, we're back. Yeah. Sorry, that 9th round, he counters off the ropes. He spent a lot of time on the ropes just getting pummeled and just countering back with hooks. And Joe Joyce ate about 70 left hooks. Anyway, if he hadn't dropped him in that round, based on the scorecards, it would have been a majority draw if Chisora had won that round 10-9. That 9th round, if he hadn't dropped him, well, with that score, with that 10-8 round, he wins a unanimous decision. If he hadn't dropped him and say he still won the round 10-9, it would have been a draw. And if, what would probably more likely, if he hadn't got the knockdown, Joe Joyce, if you look at the rest of the round, probably would have won that round. It was a good round for him until then. Then Derek Chisora loses. So really, it was all down to the knockdown. He needed it. He pulled it out of the bag. And I've never seen anything like it, George. What was your opinion on it? What did you think?
Yeah, well, when the fight was made, you're thinking, these guys, they got miles on the clock now, but is it still an even fight? You just don't know. Yeah. You just don't know. But it really was. I mean, Chisora looked tired, like he was bouncing from rope to rope to rope. But when he does punch, he more often than not lands because Joyce's defense is so poor. I mean, it's always been so poor. And those shots are far more eye-catching shots than the one that Joyce lands. But he just keeps marauding forward, don't he? Just keeps coming forward. So you think, is he just going to get Chisora? And there were loads of times where it looked like Chisora's legs were going or gone. Frampton on comms was picking up on it. And it felt like one of those fights where you could just say the worst thing at the wrong time, and it makes it look like you don't know what you're talking about. You're like, Joyce is on the verge of finishing him now, and then Chisora chins him, or Chisora's looking like he's getting his feet under him, and then he's gone, So I think it was a great fight to watch where they both bring enough energy where they're not just looking to hold and hug like we, generations before. That was the heavyweights we were used to when they start coming to this stage of their career. But these two are still good engines. I thought personally Joyce is just still too heavy. I think he's too old now to get that weight down. But when he's coming in at the 280s, for someone who's not particularly fast on his feet and mobile, his hand speed's always been quite slow, but I can imagine it's a right effort now to get the punches out. And Chisora still got that bit of whip, that he'll dip one way, dip the other. The hooks are still dangerous enough. And I think, was it a left hook or a right hand? I think it was a right hand.
Right hand off the ropes.
Right hand off the ropes that he lands on Joyce. And yeah, I mean, Joyce, to be honest, as he gets up, you're thinking, he's not too bad. Maybe it's a flash knockdown, but it's not. He's definitely hurt at that point. He's just got that stoic face that doesn't really give an awful lot away. And you're right, Dick. He was winning that round, wasn't he? He was winning that round. And at that point, you do think, I think the round before was a good round for Joyce as well. You're like, right, maybe he's really cranking it up now. Is Chisora going to get through this fight? But he does. He gets through, gets the win, and he was there to the very end. I think he was tidying up after. I saw a video of him putting the chairs away at the O2. He says, "I don't want to leave." So
I bet he doesn't. It's been
He wants 2 more. He wants to get to 50 fights, which is admirable deck. But I'm wondering, 50 fights. That's 2 more. I don't see how he won't get there, but if you're looking after Derek Chisora, or if you just want to entertain the fans, who are you thinking for the last 2 fights? Or basically, who are you thinking next? And can he get through this person next, win, lose, or draw, and still be fit enough for another fight?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's 50 fights is what he wants. Manchester in December, he said. In his post-fight press conference, he turned up about 1 a.m. Sunday morning.
5 guys?
Bare feet, white dressing gown, war hat, shades. Not 5 guys. It was another bag of burgers. He bought a big sack of burgers, gave them all out to the journalists. It was much appreciated, of course. And he said, yeah, December's when he wants to go again, Manchester. And then he wants his 50th next year in Zimbabwe, where he was born. Very good questions. One that also David Caulfield asked, or David Scorefield, it might be 06, who asked, with Chisora wanting 2 more fights to make 50, who should he fight? Thanks for that question. I don't know, because he's kind of been through everyone already. You don't want to be someone. Jake Buckland asked, does Parker beat Joyce? Joseph Parker, who got stopped by Joe Joyce before. My answer to that is I think he would beat him nowadays. George is nodding as well. And does Chisora beat Zhang? I mean, no, Chisora doesn't beat Zhang. So then you're like, okay, there's some good heavyweights out there. It has to be marketable enough for the fight to sell in Manchester. He'll sell himself in some way. That's why Joe Joyce was perfect. But there's no room for Chisora these days to be fighting like Zhilei Zhang or anyone like that, or some young pup. Like, he's not a gatekeeper or anything like that.
No.
So it's a really hard one, isn't it? You're thinking,
yeah.
Like,
I mean, names who I might think, that's a big name. Deontay Wilder.
oh,
Do you think Wilder might be finished now, and he might be like, well, fuck it, I'll have one more with Derek Chisora. That'll be one that because let's get. I mean,
think Chisora beat Wilder these days.
Yeah, exactly, and he would, and Chisora just kind of deserves to beat Wilder. I'm trying to think of guys with a bit of name, bit of curiosity.
That's the key.
Probably beat. I think. Does he beat? He probably beats Wilder. Wilder is not active enough to beat. If he lands on him, but we say that about everyone. But I don't think he does. Yeah. If Wilder wants to box anymore, Chisora back in the UK maybe. Jarrell Miller, he's out this weekend against
Andy Ruiz.
Obviously, see how he gets on there. But
Miller's that's a great fight, because the build up would just be the two of them would be hilarious. Again, I think that's a great shout. Yeah, even if he loses against Andy Ruiz.
Yeah, he probably makes it more sense if he does lose. Miller, he runs out of steam. He's way too overweight. But his hand speed's still relatively quick, even though he's now, if he is clean. I think that's a good fight. You're trying to think of guys who are entertaining, want to be in entertaining fights, but yeah, they're not going through the gears. So other than that, you're thinking, well, if it's a Brit, who are the Brits? I don't really want to see him in again with Dillian White, because whatever the outcome, if they boxed again, would alter their rivalry, and I think that rivalry kind of is where it is now.
Done. It's nice. Yeah,
it's done.
I
Johnny Fisher, too fresh deck.
Yeah, I think Eddie Hearn's been talking about Johnny Fisher, and it's one of them where it's like you've mentioned Wilder, Miller, like names established, maybe over the hill, or you go the other way, and you go, right, okay, let's see if one of the young guys can see Chisora off. Like, let's see if you can handle the heat, sort of thing. And Johnny Fisher's been mentioned by Eddie Hearn. I mean, I'd watch Johnny Fisher against Derek Chisora without a doubt. And there's enough of them, like David Adelaide, Solly Dakers. There's so many. Fraser Clark, obviously, him and Wardley are probably going to have a rematch. So that's not announced yet. But there's enough names in Britain where you could keep it British. And it would be a big opportunity for someone to go and beat Chisora, especially now after what he did on Saturday night. Because I was thinking, it's weird, because a couple of years ago when Joe Joyce beat like Dubois and Chisora was kind of, people had said he was finished and they should retire. The idea of Joe Joyce boxing Derek Chisora was almost absurd anyway, let alone for them to fight and for Chisora to win. So it does change around quickly. But yeah, they've got to handle this one carefully, because they don't want to see him getting knocked out, obviously. He doesn't really get knocked out anyway. Dillian White did and David Hay did. But other than that, you think you don't want to see him getting knocked out if he wants to go and fight in Zimbabwe, a 50th fight. Like, it has to be, yeah. And then also, how many more times can he go to that well? Because that was like nothing I've ever seen on Saturday night. So yeah, that's a dodgy one. I like the Miller shout. That's depends how you feel about Jarrell Miller getting how many chances he's got, but he's boxing in.
I mean, they've all been up to it. well, not all of them, but lots of them have been up to it, and they come again. And heavyweights sort of live forever, and they can keep coming. Derek Chisora is definitely proof of that. That popularity and entertainment surpass.
Yeah.
So I think it's wouldn't want it to be a tough one to match. Would Jarrell Miller be maybe too expensive? I don't know. Will they do Joyce again? Like,
I mean, I'd fucking watch it.
Yeah,
and Joyce is saying he's coming back. I'm not exactly sure what's going to. I will speak exactly about Joyce next, but yeah, I mean, a rematch of that in Manchester would sell, wouldn't it? No one would be against it. I'm sure.
No, but yeah.
But
it's when you think in the build up to this fight this weekend, they're showing Joe Joyce beat Daniel Dubois, beat Joseph Parker, and now if you said Joyce beat Parker, you'd say yes. It's a bit cruel, isn't it? It's a bit unfair. It's bizarre how boxing works, but certainly how the heavyweight division is flowing at this point in time, Deck. I'm not sure what his next fit for Joyce, but I think he's had a great career. He hasn't won a world title, but I don't think he really has much of a chance now to do it. So if he called it a day at his age, might be the right decision. He does take a lot of shots. Like when he boxes, he doesn't have the ability to evade the shots. He's just always been a big, strong guy. And at times we've thought within his career that he's sort of unbreakable. You can't knock him out. Got Homer Simpson syndrome. Just nudge him. Wait till he's punched out and nudge him. But I don't think that's the case anymore.
No.
So yeah, I mean,
I think we might get Dylan White. Maybe that might be the one. Another thing he said in the press conference, what Chisora said, yeah, I'll fight Dylan White again, but he just has to be clean. So I think that could be one to be made, and I'm sure it would sell. For Joyce, he's 38 now. He seems to be getting hit more often as well, because obviously if he hangs around in a 10-round fight and doesn't get rid of him, he's going to get hit. It's interesting. But then someone said to Delboy, he's like, what do you think? What do you think should Joe do? And he said, well, how many losses has he had? He's had 3 losses. And he was like, I've had 13 losses. 10 years ago, when he made his debut at the O2, well, not his debut, when he had his first fight at the O2, he'd already lost 5 times. He'd already been knocked out by David A. He'd lost to Klitschko. He'd lost what's his face? The big Finnish bloke. What's his name? Hellenius. Lost to him controversially, but he'd lost 5 times. And then he had the O2 fight, and he's had 10 fights at the O2 since. So, like, he said he could do what he wants. Like, it's not, you don't live and die by defeats in heavyweight division. I'm just not exactly sure what the move is for Joe Joyce.
Yeah.
We'll see. But yeah, someone at Owen Bomber said on Twitter, how criminally underrated is Chisora? He gave Usyk a test, and he's been at the top level for 10 plus years. It's a good point. I mean, we can't overstate the fact that the idea that he's a servant to British boxing, that what he's done for boxing, but he has been one of the sort of ubiquitous evergreen characters. And that's what he is as well, a character. It's not just turns up and fights, but he always brings something like controversial, colourful, just a bit of sort of pizzazz, and he always has done. So yeah, I think he has been underrated in a sense. The fact that he can still win as well, win a fight like that, is a beggar's belief.
Well, I picked it, but
you did. You knew it was coming.